Hey everyone, we're going to start the actual webinar in about 3 more minutes. I figured just jump quickly, say hi to our webinar attendees. It's a pretty impressive list. We have about 100 attendees, so glad to have you join us. I'm also actually doing Facebook Live at the same time. I'm not sure how Facebook Live would actually work for people who are not seeing the webinar slides, but I've always believed that a good presentation should be able to stand on its own without the actual PowerPoint. If you're able to hear me clearly, if you can just let me know through the chat function. Are you guys able to hear me well? Nothing worse than starting a webinar, speaking for about 10 minutes, and then discovering that no one can hear you. Makes for an interesting webinar. Again, I'll start top of the hour at 11 o'clock Central Eastern, 12 Eastern. So where's everybody attending the webinar from? Why don't you guys share with us? Let's see. Maybe you guys can let me know. So I see there's a couple of people from Chicago, LA. Shireen, how are you doing? And let's see, Delhi as well. Ah, man, I wonder what time it is. It must be really late. So I appreciate staying up to watch for the webinar, the webcast, and I promise that it would be useful. Again, so how about some others? I see Seattle, and John is attending from Seattle. A couple of guys from Austin. Always good to have people from Austin. I actually was in Austin just a couple of weeks ago, so. And hello guys, also on the Facebook Live. So I'm gonna actually be looking over here, which is gonna be sort of interesting, and doing the webinar at the same time. So I hope the Facebook Live would not be too bad. So let's see. I'm just allowing people, giving them a chance to join us. I see more and more people joining. I'm just taking care. We have also a couple of staff members with us. Simba will be, who's our marketing, he's our growth marketer, will be responsible for our Twitter account during the webinar. Facebook Live, I see some friends joining and waving. Excellent. Okay, doke. I think we are about ready to get started. So with that, let's go ahead and start the webinar recording, and then here we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining a new webcast, a new webinar with Invesp. My name is Khaled Saleh. I am the CEO and co-founder of Invesp. Invesp is one of the oldest dedicated conversion rate optimization companies in North America. We're the third or fourth company that started really in the CRO space. So let me jump in quickly because you're expecting some value, and I hope to provide a lot of value from this webcast. Can everybody see my slides? Can everybody hear me clearly? I just want to make sure that I do this like in a quick house cleaning notes before we jump in. Make sure that everyone can hear me well. Everyone can see the slides. You should be able to see in the next 30 minutes slide on your screen. If not, please do let me know. Otherwise, I will continue. So I'm gonna give you a quick background about Invesp, the work that we do. I promise that will not take more than 75 seconds, and then from there we'll talk about our ship process, the ship method. So quickly, what do we do at Invesp? We really help you. We help companies make more money. The goal and the idea behind Invesp is to really help you distinguish yourself from your competitors to the point that really they become way behind. Now, how do we actually do that? Because every company can say that they do that. How we do that by help you craft and orchestrate a very unique customer experience. Now, mind you, if you read any marketing blogs nowadays, attend any marketing conference, everybody talks about customer experience, just like everybody talks about focusing on the customer. The challenge is, how do you translate those words into something actionable that you can actually implement in your marketing strategy, and you can actually apply in every interaction that you have with the customer? And that's what I want to talk about today. A couple of things about Invest. We basically run full turnkey CRO solutions for our clients. Our clients range from the large enterprise, think eBay, 3M, and I actually see a couple guys from eBay also attending the webinar, from eBay, from 3M, Special Olympics, Target, to really young startups, aggressive startups that are looking to really capture the market, that are looking to establish a unique value proposition for themselves. Now, let me start the webinar by telling you a story, because I basically moved to Turkey about 4 or 5 years ago. We decided to open an office, in a European office, and I'm like, okay, perfect. I mean, it was between Paris, between London and Istanbul. And all honesty, just the cost of living and the cost of hiring people, it just made Turkey perfect. Turkey was just made perfect sense. Some people, when I say that, assume that I'm Turkish. I am not. I don't speak a single word of Turkish. And it's sort of funny. So I go on this search until I found an apartment complex that mostly foreigners live in it. And I'm like, okay, perfect. I found the perfect place to live in. I'm excited, paying top dollar. And as I move into the complex, I start seeing all these problems. Usability problems. I usually talk to my clients about usability problems on the web. I start seeing those problems in my apartment complex. So my excitement, and just thinking that, oh, I found the perfect place, starts to dwindle down. And I want to talk about this because I think bad usability is all around us. So, what are some of the problems? So for those of you who are live on the webcast, on the webinar, you will see actually the entrance and the exit to the apartment. And what you see is the apartment complex, this fancy place, has a single, basically, lane for entrances and exits from the whole apartment building. So every time I'm trying to go into the apartment building, to the apartment complex, I'm trying to exit, I am just freaking completely exhausted, mentally just shocked. I'm like, what the heck? Because I have to be watching other cars that are coming from the other direction. I have to, you have to coordinate, and there's always long lines. And you wonder, why the architect who spent basically build this amazing place didn't think about building the right place. Another problem that I saw, which is sort of very funny, and it goes back to usability and really thinking about usability. So again, those who are watching the webcast, you can see my kitchen. What's the problem with the picture that you see in the kitchen? So basically, I have the dishwasher with the different dishes, and the actual place where you put the dishes is just right above the dishwasher. So I have to open the cabinet, and as I'm getting the dishes out, lo and behold, I'm constantly banging my head against the door of the closet. And I'm like, you just hear me screaming as I go through this process of emptying the dishes or putting the dishes in. And every time I look at it, I say to myself, well, those people who actually put the design of this apartment, this nice apartment, did not think about actually living in it and thinking, well, what are the problems that people see? And it just gets me really frustrated. So I start thinking about how much time I'm wasting between entering the apartment complex. And there's so many other problems, but I'm just kind of giving those 2 examples. How much time am I wasting by the poor design of the entrance, by wasting and banging my head against the closet, the kitchen closet? I am basically wasting about 2 minutes per day. And it's funny, if you talk to any of the other residents, there's 4,000 residents, 4,000 families that live in the same place, and we're all wasting 8,000 minutes per day. That comes out to 130. If you extrapolate, that's 133 hours of wasted dime in that single apartment complex if you just do the math on that wasted time and the frustration that we get to. It's just absolutely amazing. It just shows how poor usability means loss of revenue. Now, here's something else. So I'm trying to book a ticket to go to Istanbul, where I'm actually in our Chicago office. I've spent the last couple of months there, and I need to go to Istanbul. Now, I've tried all airlines, and for those of you who know me, I travel international quite a bit. I like Turkish Airlines. I think they're one of the nicest airlines. They're a bit more on the expensive side. They just did a website redesign about, I heard different figures, but in the tens of millions of dollars. Now, for those of you guys who are seeing this reservation page, so I go and I'm like, okay, like, let's go ahead and make a reservation. Can you find, like, I find the right reservation, I find the right date, and I'm trying to say, I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready. I have my credit card in my hand. I'm ready to place an order. I see the reservations, but I have no clue where to click to actually start the checkout process or just to pay for the ticket. And I'm like, really, guys? You've paid, like, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars on the redesign of the site, and I cannot even find where to click to be able to start the checkout process. Now, I ran some numbers for the Turkish Airlines website. So they get about 2.5 million visitors, 2.5 million visitors on monthly basis. Their average website conversion rate, I'm just guesstimating over here, just based on other airlines, is about 3%. It's probably a little bit higher than that. So they're getting about almost 380,000 conversions per month. Now, imagine somebody like me who's trying to place an order, trying to buy a ticket with them. I have my credit card in my hand and I'm just looking where to click, for God's sake. How much revenue are they losing? I know, at least for that ticket, I decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to do Turkish Airlines this time. I'm going to choose somewhere else. There's about at least probably 20% in conversions that they are losing month to month. If you average out the ticket prices at $300, you're talking about $11 million in lost revenue. Now, here's something funny. With most websites that we deal with nowadays, by the way, it's not an issue of finding where the right CTA is. Everybody has the right CTA in the right place. Everybody has the right usability, or at least you hope in 2019, we're about to enter 2020, that most of us have figured this out. However, there are sites and there are designers and there are developers and there are marketers who do stupid mistakes, and at the end, it's the companies that pay for those stupid mistakes. So one thing before I jump into the process, because that's what the webinar is going to cover, is the conversion optimization process that we implement on our different projects. And it's something, by the way, that you can copy. You can take after this webinar and implement right away. And if you have any questions, you can always, I'll share my email. You can just drop me an email, ask me whatever questions you might have. So we run a study where we benchmark different websites, and we do this on annual basis. We benchmark typically the about 500 different websites between the IRCE, the top e-commerce retailers, the top SaaS companies. What do you think is the average benchmark score for a site? And we're talking about the top 500 sites that you see. Out of 100, what do you think the score is? Are we talking 20, 30, 80, 90? Let's see some interaction with the audience. So I see over here 55. I see 75, and I see 72. Well, let's take a look at the answer. So the average website score that we're seeing is actually at 55. Somebody must have heard me talk about this before. But imagine this gap. We're talking about 2019, and most websites are still scoring at 55 out of 100 if you benchmark them against 20 different conversion metrics. Okay, so let's jump in over here and also think about this. What I really truly believe, that the average is losing. Now, what we see is that when websites first start, they're able to drive very targeted traffic, and they're able to have high conversion rates. But at some point, you hit a threshold and you start driving less targeted traffic, and you start driving, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, couple million visitors to your website per month or per week or per day, you start seeing your conversion rate drop tremendously. However, there are the few and select websites that are really exceptional. Those websites are able to drive high number of visitors and also are able to drive high conversion rates. So one of the discussions I've had with a group of conversion optimizers recently, they were asking, what's the highest website conversion rate that you've seen? And people were throwing numbers, 20%, 30%. Definitely companies are kind of like, retailers in the flower retailers, FTD, Pro Flowers, any of those typically report anywhere between 20 to 30% conversion rates. I told them, I recall a company based in Ann Arbor, and it's a fast food chain. Let's even give away a couple of things so you can do a little bit of homework there and figure out who they are. They called us and they were complaining that their average website conversion rate for first-time visitors was at 40%, and average website conversion rate for returning visitors was at 80%. And they were complaining about that. And in all honesty, when I first heard them say that initially, I'm like, really? I thought to myself, like, they do not know their metrics really well. And I recall visiting them, sitting with their analytics team and looking at the metrics, and I'm like, wow, they actually have an 80% conversion rate for their returning visitors, and they're not happy, with it. My point over here, take action. If you're not able to increase your website conversion rates, campaign conversion rates by 20 to 30% year to year, really conversion optimization should be a top priority for you over the next 12 months. And understand what's the playing field that you're really operating in. Are your competitors launching conversion optimization programs? Are they launching A/B testing programs? Where are they hiring growth marketing teams? The next thing that I want you to think about as you start thinking about conversion optimization, as you're going to see the process that I'm going to cover, is I do not believe in the low-hanging fruits. I know it's a term that marketers love to say, and it's a term that people get excited about, and it's like how you sell conversion optimization services. But I really think nowadays most websites have most of those low-hanging fruits covered. If you think about the different things that you can fix on a website, and let's talk about those. So there are the bugs and there's the issues that you have when it comes to the site not functioning, how it should be functioning. So, okay, you need to fix those right away. That's kind of the ground level when you talk about improving website conversion rate. Then on top of that comes usability issues. I'm clicking on a button, I'm finding the right image, I'm finding things are behaving on your website are behaving how they should be behaving. That's the second level of improving your website conversion rate. On top of that comes conversion issues. And by conversion issues, I talk about emotional and social needs that the site needs to address, and we'll talk about those in a little bit more. And then finally, the level above that is persuasion issues, where the site goes from dealing with your needs into really making you want the product or the service that they offer, and that's a whole other level. So if you think about it as a triangle, it's almost like Maslow, the human needs that we talk about. But though I think of it the same way when it comes to optimizing a website and increasing a website conversion rate. Lots of times people confuse usability and conversion. I see that happen all the time. I see it done by conversion optimizers. I see it done by marketers, and I see it done by kind of your average person. There's a huge difference between conversion and usability. Usability is about fixing usability issues on the websites. Conversion is about making the site more persuasive, and there is a big difference between the two. Now, you have to do usability in order for you to get to conversion. If I'm clicking on your buttons and they're not working, guess what? You might have the most amazing persuasive copy, the most amazing design. But if I'm clicking on the buttons and they're not working, guess what? The conversion doesn't happen. Usability is about making the website user-friendly. Conversion is about making the site more persuasive. And finally, Usability is about focusing on top of mind issues while conversion is focusing on psychological triggers. And I will give a couple of examples as we start with the process. Now, one thing that I want you to do as kind of a next step that you can do outside, as you finish this webcast, as you finish this Facebook Live, and I'm seeing a lot more friends that are waving. Hello, everyone. Identify the items that you have on your website in terms of bugs and identify the UX issues. You don't need a conversion optimizer to come and tell you, well, you have this bug on your website. No, you can test your website fully and then make sure that it's empty and free from any bugs. Fix those first, because that's kind of the first hurdle that you have to go through. Now, here it comes the process. Our process we refer to as ship, because you constantly have to be shipping. You updates to your website, fixes to your website, things that fix conversion issues, fix things that improve, add new features that improve your website. And I think, by the way, it's very important that we distinguish between those two things. There are sometimes conversion problems that you have on a website that you want to fix. And I think most conversion optimizers focus on that. However, there's something else I want you to think about. Sometimes there are features that you want to add to your website, things that are missing that will make the life of your website visitors easier, that will make them fall in love with your website. Now, falling in love with a website, when was the last time did that happen? Most of us shop and get used to websites, and we rarely go to the office the next day and say to our friend, hey, by the way, I just bought this item from this store. Absolutely love it. Absolutely recommend it. It rarely happens. Now, let's talk about the ship process. Scrutinize, hypothesize, implement, propagate. Those are the 4 main steps. And I know we laid out in a very linear fashion, but the reality of it, at any point in time, you can be doing any of the different activities under those different stages: the scrutinize, the hypothesize, the implement, and the propagate. Here's something I can promise you. And this is something that we see on projects. You follow this process, you can achieve anywhere between 20% to 50% increase in conversions. 20 to 50%. Every time I see somebody promising 100%, 200%, 300% increase in conversions, I just shake my head and I walk away. We've done more A/B tests than any other company out there in terms of professional services. We've conducted close to 13,000 A/B tests until now. Now, unless you're on Optimizely or a VWO, one of those actual testing companies, yes, they've run a lot more, but they're just software companies. But as a professional services company, we've done about 13,000 A/B tests. So we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think a reasonable expectation for a CRO project, for a conversion optimization project, is anywhere between a 20 to 50% increase in conversions. Now, with a caveat, this also will, of course, depend on your website. If your website was built in 1995 and you haven't touched it since then, okay, maybe I can double your conversion rates. But that's, an exception. Most websites nowadays, most designers know kind of the basic principles of building an acceptable website. So kind of keep that in mind. Let's talk about the different phases, the different stages that you have to go through. By the way, if you do have any questions, our webinar attendees, please feel free to send me your questions through the question functionality in GoToWebinar. So the very first stage that we do during our scrutinize, and the goal from the scrutinize phase is to uncover all the conversion issues that we can see on a website. During the scrutinize phase, the very first stage is we conduct what we call the jobs to be done analysis. Now, the jobs to be done framework is a framework that was put out by Professor Clayton Christensen. Absolutely amazing. I highly recommend reading the book Competing Against Luck. And our friend Bob Mista from the Rewired Group in Detroit have done tremendous work of implementing that theoretical framework into different projects. Now, I'm going to summarize. I'm going to talk about this only for about 45 seconds. So what the jobs to be done framework tells you is that people, you and I, we hire products or services to fulfill a particular job in our lives. For example, you've hired this webinar for the last 40 minutes, for the last 30 minutes, to fill a need in your life, which is to know more about conversion optimization. So it's almost like, okay, I need to know about conversion optimization. I can go read a blog, I can buy a book, I can talk to my friend about it, or I can listen to Khaled and Invest and hear about their process. So you had an opening, and the opening is almost like, learning about conversion optimization, and different actors came and applied. And guess what? By you attending this webinar, by you watching this live Facebook Live, you accepted us to fill that job. Now, every job has three aspects to it. There's the functional aspect, and then there's the emotional aspect, and then there's the social aspect. So if you think about you attending this webinar, the functional aspect, well, I need to learn about conversion optimization. That's really what it is. But then there's an emotional aspect. Why are you hiring somebody for that job? Guess what? Well, I want to maybe advance in my career. I want to be better, that's an area that I want to focus on. There's something emotional. There's something personal that you hire products or services to fulfill. And then there is social. Maybe you're attending this webinar because you want to be ahead of your other teammates, or you want to be able to speak at conferences. So there's a social element to hire a product or service. We all know the saying that people don't buy a quarter-inch drill, we buy quarter-inch hole. And I always mention this, people say, yes, we all know it. And I'm like, mind you, I've never bought a quarter-inch drill, nor did I ever buy a quarter-inch hole. I really never did. What I buy is a place to hang my pictures. And I'm not even buying kind of the hole in the wall to hang the pictures. No, what I'm buying is a couple of things. One is the peace of mind. So my wife would not keep on telling me, Khaled, when are you going to hang those pictures? And at the same time, what I'm buying is also the social aspect. So there's an emotional aspect, and the other thing that I'm buying is the social aspect. When my friends and then family members come and they see the nice picture that I put all over the wall, they'll say, "Oh, this looks great." So one of the very first things that you want to do in a conversion optimization project, going back to it, is figure out the jobs to be done. Why do people hire your product or service? Here is a list of resources that basically you can use to read more about getting hired for a product for jobs to be done. Next thing that you want to do is conduct an expert review. The goal from the expert review is to look at the site independently and try and figure out, okay, what are the usability issues? What are the conversion issues that we are seeing on the website? So typically for us on a project, we'll bring in 3 conversion optimization specialists. They sit through the site. They think about the visitors who are coming to the website. And then basically they would try and figure out what are the areas that the site is broke at. And again, we're distinguishing between usability issues, and we're distinguishing between conversion issues. So here's a sample for those of you who are attending the webcast of a conversion review or an expert review, where we identify, just if you notice, and for those of you on the Facebook Live, you cannot see this, but I'm just showing on the top right navigation of the site, and we have almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 issues in an area that has 4 different labels that we've able to identify. So the thing is, though, how do you do that? You think of your website from put yourself in the shoes of your visitors and think of your website from the perspective of those visitors. Next thing that we do is we'll do user research. That's when we conduct polls and we'll conduct surveys to identify where are people struggling, what do they like or they don't like about the site. Now, mind you, you see this nowadays on so many different websites where there is a small pop-up that appears and it's asking you, what are you trying to accomplish today by visiting our website? And people fill that. Now, I know lots of people rely on this, but here is one kind of caveat to that. This gives you few data points because we're just asking 1 or 2 questions from a lot of visitors. So you got to just be careful when you're asking those questions. However, there's about 57 different types of questions that you can be asking those visitors. And we can divide them between motivators, what brings visitors to our website, barriers, what's stopping them from converting, and then finally hooks. For those who converted, what actually persuaded them to convert. And the idea is, as you're asking questions and you're finding insights with every single item, what you want to do is you want to be able to find something actionable something that you can actually implement. You don't want to just say ask a question and then just sit twirling your thumbs and saying, no, I don't know what to do about this data. Next thing that you want to do is you want to do data analysis. That's when you look at your Google Analytics. You want to look at your Adobe Analytics if you're using Adobe, whatever analytics you might be using. But I want you to think of analytics from the perspective of visitors. Most analytics solutions out there are designed with search engine optimization, with SEO in mind. It's not designed with the conversion optimization in mind. What's the difference? SEO thinks about, that's my SEO friends who are attending, please don't get upset. But for the most part, SEO focuses on the performance of a single page. Are we ranking? Are we not ranking? How many visitors are we getting? What's the average time people are spending on the page? What's the bounce rate? What's the exit rate? When it comes to conversion optimization, those metrics are really important, but you want to look at the full funnel, correct? You want to look at how people are navigating across the website. Are they going back and forth? How much content they're consuming before deciding to exit? So there is a bit more sophistication that is required when you do data analysis for conversion optimization purposes. Again, here are some resources that you can that will help you, whether in conducting the heuristic evaluation and looking at Google Analytics and using that for improving your conversion rates. Next thing that you want to do is you want to do some usability testing. This is when you stand on the side and you bring actual users and you ask them to perform tasks on your website. Now, lots of companies that I see in the CRO space, what they end up using is they end up using user testing to get some users and to test the website. For those of us our webinar attendees, have you used user testing or any of those other platforms to get some users to do some user testing on your website? So let's see some quick answers. Have you used one of those platforms? I'm seeing what people saying. Yes, yes. Yes. Oh, it's almost like almost everybody had hired one of those usability testing companies. Well, here's the problem that I have with those sites. People on those sites, it's almost like they make a living out of doing usability testing. So they're constantly they're just getting paid to do more and more usability testing. And you're almost like, hiring usability experts as opposed to an actual user who's going to test your website. So you just got to be careful with that. We prefer to recruit visitors who come to the website and say, hey guys, would you mind, we'll give you an Amazon gift certificate, $50, $100, and we watch them. We will do a GoToMeeting sessions or Zoom sessions, and we'll watch them interact with the website. It's unmoderated, so we're not asking them questions. We're just watching them do whatever they need to do on the website. Why do I mention all these different tools that we run through in the scrutinize phase? The idea is, if your only tool is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And if you're just strictly on your website from the user perspective, then you're missing out some data insights. If you're looking at it strictly from analytics perspective, you're losing the qualitative, the human touch. If you're not looking at it from an expert review, you're really losing kind of some usability principles that have been established in the industry. So what we want to do is look at the website from different angles and identify all sorts of different problems that we have on the website. Typically, when you run through the scrutinize phase, you end up with anywhere between, I would say on the small side, about 50 to 150 possible problems, conversion problems on the website. That's a lot of problems, but I'll tell you what you can do about them. First thing that you want to do is you want to classify those problems into different buckets, different groups and categories. So there's one bucket what we call fix right away. Things that are really broke on the website and you just need to fix. I don't need to test it. I don't need to think about it. Let's just go ahead and fix it if there's a problem that requires fixing right away. There's another bucket that we find we like to classify as instrumentation. This is basically where websites have an issue with how they've implemented Google Analytics. Now, mind you, we take a look at Google Analytics for so many different companies constantly. Everybody has the basic vanilla Google Analytics installed on the website. Well, that's just very basic. That gives you very basic metrics. What you want to do is go and track where people are clicking on the website, send the right events to Google Analytics, create the right funnels and goals in Google Analytics. That'll provide a lot more insights. You will also see some research opportunities. Now, when it comes to research opportunities, those are the areas that you say, you know what, and then I'm going to give just a true simplistic of an example. That's where you say, oh, the headline is not correct. Our value proposition, our messaging has a problem. That's where we're gonna do some A/B testing, and then finally you'll have a bucket that says investigate further. This is where you see a user behavior, a particular user behavior, and you think to yourself, wow, I have no clue why visitors are acting this particular way. I need to ask more questions. I need to conduct further user research. So you go through this classification process. So if we start with 100 problems, now we put them into different buckets. So your fix right away, hopefully, will be only few problems, 2, 3. If you're very conscious about checking your website and how you roll items into your website. Your instrumentation usually, it's a bit involved, but it has to be done once and it has to be done correctly. Your research opportunities, that's where your A/B tests are, and your investigate furthers, that's where you're gonna start asking visitors more questions. Now, before I continue, I'm gonna switch quickly over here before I continue with our process. So if you're familiar with our platform, FigPii, FigPii. So the platform is in private beta. We have some absolutely amazing companies that are using it. It basically provides you with A/B testing. It gives you heat maps, it gives you session replays, and gives you online polling. So lots of the things I talk about in this webcast are available through FigPii. Now, if you subscribe to FigPii, you usually get 21 days. If you subscribe during this webcast, today, let's say, what we'll do is I will make sure that we double the free trial time. So instead of 21 days, you'll get 42 days. So again, the website is FigPii, FigPii, and again, we'll double the subscription time. Okay, so we finished the scrutinize phase. We categorize all the issues that we've uncovered on the website. Now we move on to the next phase on the project, which is the hypothesize phase. 150 issues is a problem to fix. So how do I deal with that? Well, what we do is we typically run those issues through a prioritization framework. I'll put a link to the framework where we score every single item against 18 different metrics, 18 different criteria to be more exact. That really helps us understand which items we should tackle first, which items are of a less priority. You run through that framework. Now, there's, by the way, several industry frameworks available. CXL has one, WaterFunnel has one. They're just different ones. The problem that I have with most of the other frameworks, and I've given a talk about this, most of the time they are very subjective. So if I'm using one of those other frameworks to score a list of items, and I give that same list of items to another consultant, to another conversion optimization specialist, you end up with different scoring. So what I consider to be high priority, she might consider to be less priority. So we try, in our framework, we try to remove that subjectiveness as much as possible. So if you start with 100 items, 100 possible problems on the sites at the beginning of the hypothesize phase, now what you end up with 100 prioritized items, which will make your life tremendously easier because now you know which item you need to tackle first. That's when you take the first item and you say, okay, now we have a problem that we've identified. Our research shows that problem. Let's create a hypothesis on how to fix that problem. Now, here's a problem that most people will do. Lots of times people say, well, because we believe that adding stronger messaging will help increase our conversion rates, and that's our hypothesis. That is not the hypothesis. That's something that my 14-year-old daughter can come up with. Hypotheses need to be a bit more sophisticated. I'm showing you over here an example of the hypothesis framework. So you want to include, okay, well, here is the insights that we've uncovered through user research, through data research, through our expert review. Here is the vision that we're trying to achieve. Here are the ideas that we have. Here are some industry metrics that we know of. Here is our leap of faith assumptions. And then you combine all of those to come up with your hypothesis. So it's not only to say, well, adding stronger messages is going to help us increase conversion rates. No, you will say that based on user research, we found out that 43% of our visitors are not able to identify a unique value for our offer. Our idea that strengthening our offer through XYZ will increase conversion rates by 12%. So I will specify the uplift that I'm expecting. And this is based on the industry research that was published in XYZ publication or the XYZ blog. And this is how we're going to achieve it. So there's a lot more that goes into a hypothesis as opposed to just oversimplified words that people typically mention. You take your hypothesis and then you give it to your designers, and that's where the designers are supposed to take that hypothesis and turn it into an actual design. Now, here is something I want you to keep in mind. Designers love to design things. That's what designers do. They love to design things. And we constantly tell them, stick to the hypothesis. Any change that you make on the page is about the hypothesis and about implementing that hypothesis. The minute the designs are ready, so now you have your original page, how it looked, and you have the new designs for the page, the new flow for the visitors on the site. That's when you go into your, what we call the implementation phase. So how do we do the implementation phase? First, you do development. So you have a front-end developer, hopefully a good front-end developer. And there's plenty of resources on development, but they will actually implement your tests. So now you have different designs of that page that you have on your site. It's extremely critical to run through a very detailed quality assurance process. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen clients try and implement a new design, and they're trying to do it really quickly, dirty and quick, and they end up producing more bugs to their sites. The minute you're ready and you have a new design, you have the original, you have the new design, that's when you conduct A/B testing. That's when you split the traffic. Let's say you're getting 100,000 visitors to a particular site to the homepage. So 50,000 will see the old design, 50,000 will see the new design. And that's when you compare. It's like, okay, so which page increased our conversion rate? Which page increased our average order value? Which page increased our revenue per visitor? And you're constantly monitoring. Now, the process is not linear. I know I talked about it in a linear fashion, but as you're testing a single page, you're starting with a different page and doing analysis on a different page. Then you move on to the propagate phase. That's where you look at the learnings. So, like, we ran all these experiments. What kind of success rates that we've had? Anybody knows from our webinar attendees? Anybody knows what the success rates for different conversion optimization for different A/B testing programs out there? Well, we're just doing the research on that actually for an article we're publishing today. Anyone would venture what's the success rates? Are we talking about 50%, 40%? You've done all this work, and I've talked about it now for the past 45 minutes. There's a lot of work. What do you think the success rate for A/B testing programs is? Let's hear from you guys. I see 50%. I see 60%. I see 5%. Okay. So the industry success rate for A/B testing programs 10 to 12%, which is embarrassment for all this work that I mentioned. And then you end up with new designs, and you've spent time doing the analysis, and you've spent time doing the implementation. And then you end up with a 10 to 12% success rate. It's a tough one to swallow. Follow the process that I've mentioned. We're able to achieve about 40% success rate. We've had clients that achieved a 70% success rate following the same exact process. It's not about the number of tests that you're implementing. It's about the process and being very methodical and looking for deep insights. And ultimately, after each test, what you want to do is a couple things. First, you want to calculate your, what we call the 3 whats. What were our assumptions? What did we learn? And what are the next steps? Next steps are extremely important. For every test that we finish, you should be able to build 4 or 5 follow-up tests after that. Remember that you will have some wins, you will have some losses, but I always say whenever you're doing A/B testing, you're digging for oil, because you're going to hit that one tremendously big win that's going to really impact your conversion rate, and it's going to have a big impact on your site. With that, so I'm going to run quickly through the process. So again, it's the SHIP method: scrutinize, hypothesize, implement, and propagate. The most challenging phase is the scrutinize phase, and it's the phase that people spend the least amount of time on. People always want to test. Let's test quickly. No, what you want to do is spend time, invest the time in the scrutinize phase, and uncover the visitors' motivations, look at the data. That will help you uncover issues on the website. Having said that, let me repeat a couple of offers that we have. One, I've mentioned the conversion benchmark report. If you would like to get a conversion benchmark report done for your website, this is where we benchmark your website against 20 different metrics, conversion metrics, and you'll get a score. Like I said, the average website is scoring 55 out of 100. Drop me an email or drop an email to convert@invest.com, convert@invest.com. We can only do, unfortunately, every time, and there's just a large number of attendees over here. So we'll just do it for the first 3 requests that we get, and my apologies, but just for the first 3 requests that we get, we'll do that webinar. And I will also remind you about FigPi, F-I-G-P-I-I. If you do subscribe today, I will ask our development team, I will ask our customer success team to pull the list of subscribers, and we will double basically the free time that you get on the platform. Having said that, let's connect. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, I'm mostly on LinkedIn or via email. This is my email, khaled@invest.com. I hope that you guys have found this very useful. I still see there's quite a few people attending. If you have any questions, please, you can use the chat functionality to send me those questions. Otherwise, I do appreciate you taking the time, taking an hour out of your time. I'm actually amazed that we've had almost 95% of the people continue watching the webcast, and also all the friends on, I've seen friends over here I haven't talked to in almost 20 years on the Facebook live feed. So thank you everyone. Oh, I'm seeing people join now. Now that's joining a bit late because we just finished the webinar, the webcast. Having said that, I hope everyone does well, and until next time.